same way as you are, but yes, I am.
How old are you?
At the Good Shepherd Primary School north of Adelaide, students are getting to know a little robot called Pink.
Howdy.
Can you feel emotions?
I don't have feelings like you, but I can detect emotions.
Are you hungry?
They really engage with the robots in a way that's much more than we had expected. And the other thing is that most of the students really identify with the robots and feel like they develop some sort of a relationship with the robot, so that they do personify it, which was something we didn't expect.
We're programming Pink the robot to do meditation.
So you're teaching the robot to meditate by squeezing a lemon?
Yeah, that's just the first part. There's a lot more to do.
There's a little box here, I'll make it bigger.
10-year-old Finlay and 11-year-old Madison are utterly absorbed by the challenge of teaching Pink what to do by programming the computer which controls her.
Take another lemon and squeeze it.
You get to create what you want it to do.
Yeah, it's a bit cool.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's lots of fun. We've got the power to control her.
No, and then after we'll time it, like put it in time.
Yeah.
What are you teaching Pink to do?
We're programming her to do the actions to Wheels on the Bus.
They've only got 3 fingers, so it's like...
Yeah.
4 schools in South Australia are using Pink to help kids learn computer coding. It's a skill they'll need to control technology and compete with it for the jobs of the future.
Kind of weird thinking about it because there's a lot of little children who grow up to say, oh, I want to be a teacher, but then you kind of think about what if robots take over the teaching area. You've got to kind of work out what type of job that a robot can't take over, kind of.
A lot of the jobs, if they start getting done by robots, you still need to code them to do it. So there'll still be jobs to code them. That's why I think it's important to learn how to do this stuff.
If you get it right, and it's like a reward for you to see something in action, what you've actually done.
The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round. The breakdown truck has come to help all through town.
What do you think?
Yeah, that was good.
That was good.
Relieved.
Very relieved that we got it to work. Yay!
Is it exciting?
Yeah,
Yes.
very good.
Definitely.
It didn't stuff up, so that's good.
Yeah.
If they're going to be in a world where there are already robots and there's going to be more in the future, having an understanding of how they can be used in an ethical way and to have an understanding of how jobs can be created around those robots and what's possible has to be the best way to help them with the thinking and the sort of learning that they need to be well equipped for the world they're going into.
Today, almost 12 million of us have a job, but Australia's Committee for Economic Development predicts that technological change could eliminate 5 million jobs within the next 15 years. Stephen Martin is CEDA's Chief Executive.
What we did was apply an analysis, with all things being equal, what will be the likelihood of jobs disappearing in Australia over the next 10 years. And what we found is something like 40% of current jobs, as they are structured at the moment, are likely to disappear, but that in regional areas that could be as high as 60%.
Machines have been replacing human workers since the Industrial Revolution. Since then, any routine, repeatable task has been an endangered job. Now automation has broken free of the factory to overtake more complex arenas of human labour. Last year, the introduction of robots at Sydney's Port Botany cut the number of dock workers in half.
There are still people working on the port, but there are much, much fewer. They drive cranes, they sit in a control tower oversighting what's going on, they deal with exceptions, they deal with maintenance, things like that. The main bulk of the operations are automated. I will say it is important because it's driven efficiency, and we now have at Port Botany arguably the most efficient, most technically integrated container terminal in the world. And if I said that 20 years ago about Port Botany, I would have been laughed out of the building.
This is the man leading Australia's robot revolution. Hugh Durrant-White helped automate the ports in Port Botany and Brisbane. On the other side of the country, he led the development of driverless trucks for Rio Tinto's mines in the Pilbara.
It has been a very concerted effort to build an automated mine, all the way from the pit to the port. So you're looking at automated drills, automated trains, a completely new way of doing business, computer programs that read in data, that make automated decisions, that understand how to do maintenance and all these sorts of things. And of course, just as celebrated is the fact that once you have all of that under control, you can actually run the mine completely remotely.
With driverless semi-trailers already being tested around the world, long-haul trucking jobs may also soon succumb to the robot revolution.
There is no doubt that truck drivers, I think, are on the front line. They're in one of the top 10 occupations in Australia. So I would see a significant level of structural change, particularly at that occupation. As the driverless vehicles make their way forward. And that might be, say, from 2020 through to about 2035, over that 10-15 year period.
I think the first thing off the agenda is really going to be, for example, driving autonomously between Sydney and Melbourne on the highway. It's not hard to imagine, and indeed the technology exists, for dedicating a lane and saying this is going to be for autonomous trucks.
Bank tellers, supermarket checkout staff and airline check-in staff have already been pushed aside by technology. The next wave of automation will be driven by cognitive computers, which learn to solve complex problems by themselves.
This year, for the first time, a computer has beaten the world master of the game Go, the Asian game Go, which requires thinking about future strategies to beat your opponent. And in winning those challenge matches, it made a couple of moves that the experts watching the game didn't believe anyone else, any human, had ever made, and which they couldn't quite understand why it had made those moves. And that's possibly the future of computers, is not just doing things that we've told them to do better and faster, but actually coming up with new ways of doing things that we wouldn't have thought of.
John Williams is a managing partner with the global consulting giant PwC, which predicts that 44% of current Australian jobs are at risk over the next 20 years.
Many of today's jobs will disappear, so there will be fewer of today's jobs, but we believe that there will be more of tomorrow's jobs to replace them. Really, what's happening is the same thing that happened to blue-collar work in the 70s and 80s and 90s is going to happen to white-collar work in the next 10 to 15 years.
The Australian workforce has survived seismic shifts before. Fearing the rise of the machines is nothing new. Four Corners was reporting on it in 1969.
When this circuit learns your job, what are you going to do?
And again in 1978.
This is a word processor, offspring of the mating of transistor and typewriter. It makes one typist the productive equal of 6. The salesman introduced this machine as the new accounting department. It does everything around the office except make the tea. It replaces clerks, office girls, office boys.
Jobs are going to be destroyed by a holocaust, a firestorm of technology.
I still think you'll find that going forward, it's the white-collar professionals who are going to do well. It just won't be the secretarial jobs, but they're already gone. When I started in this business, there were typists. Now everyone's a typist, but no one's employed as a typist. So they're long gone. So the routine jobs have gone.
Mark Wooden from Melbourne University runs the leading survey of Australians' work and income. He's been tracking changes in employment trends over the past century.
If you go back to, say, the turn of last century, 1900, we were very much dependent on farming, agriculture.
At its peak, agriculture employed about 1 in 4 of all Australian workers.
And then over the next century, of course, there's a big change. Agriculture would produce more and more and more, but with fewer and fewer workers. Today, 1 in 50 Australian workers, 2.5% of the workforce in agriculture. So nothing, but they're reducing, 100-fold more output with those fewer workers.
By 1960, manufacturing employed 28% of Australian workers. Today, manufacturing employs only 8%.
I don't think it's be very brave to suggest that in a decade's time it'll be 5%.
Isn't the inexorable momentum towards an economy that needs fewer human beings working?
Well, the history of the last 200 years says no, okay, that there are more jobs than ever before. We've become wealthier and we're spending our money on services and we're not spending our time doing the heavy lifting, the dirty work.
This is our common image of a computer.
In the 80s, white-collar workers found new jobs as Australia's service sector grew to become the great employer it is today. It's where more than 75% of us now work.
Jobs of the past have been replaced by jobs of today. Jobs of today will be replaced by jobs of the future.
Demographer and commentator Bernard Salt is a partner at KPMG. He says if the past is any guide, there is no need to panic about the future.
We have had digital disruption in social media, in the media, in the taxi industry. We've had the globalisation of manufacturing, particularly impacting Australia. And yet the evidence is there's still more people in work. From the year 2000 to 2016, the number of workers in the Australian workforce has increased by 3 million. The number of people who are unemployed, comparing 2000 with 2016, has virtually not changed, about 6% compared to 5.7%. So the number of workers has increased. The nature of work may well be changed, but the kind of work has simply shifted. The middle class is doing other jobs.
The jobs most vulnerable to computerisation include accountants, lawyers and real estate agents. Demand for beauticians, personal trainers, manicurists and intensive care nurses has been booming. The number of baristas in Australia tripled between 2006 and 2011.
There are other jobs that are expanding, and these would be jobs in personal services, for example, or in technology, or in healthcare, or in aged care, childcare, for example. The nature of work is changing. Some jobs are diminishing, other jobs are evolving.
Some of the jobs of the future are already here.
Normally, we don't have enough space to show this amount of data.
Ben Simons is the Technical Director of the University of Technology's cutting-edge data arena. It turns vast amounts of information into an immersive 3D experience, like this glimpse of outer space.
Now that we are in close, we can actually see the 36 million stars.
By visualising data from radio telescopes, he isolates young stars, which may reveal secrets about the origin of the universe.
The stars that we're interested in are actually these ones up the top here. These are the red stars. These are the needles in the haystack.
So the red ones are the young ones?
They're the ones we're looking for. It's very hard to make sense of data when it's a list of numbers. I mean, anyone who's looked at a spreadsheet knows that, there's not much that you can figure out. As soon as we turn it into an image, make it spatial, when the data's visual, then we can actually start to understand what we're looking at.
In previous lives, Ben's been a CSIRO scientist and the visual effects boss on Happy Feet 2.
I've done 15 feature films for the past 10 years, where, in fact, we do work with big data, but for entertainment. We're now taking a lot of those techniques and bringing it back into science and engineering so that we can take on the challenge of the big data and try to get it on the screen and make sense.
There will be more high-tech jobs like this in the future, but not for everyone.
There are all sorts of jobs today I couldn't have conceived of 40 years ago, and in 40 years' time there'll be all sorts of jobs that I can't conceive of today. That is true. The question though is, what sorts of jobs will they be? How many people will have access to them? And how will those people be able to survive in the world through the jobs that they're doing?
There was an agrarian revolution, there was an industrial revolution, there was a computer revolution, and each time we've found ways as a species, as humans, to respond to that and create new jobs for people to do. Having said that, it's easy with hindsight to look back and assume that all happened very smoothly. If you look at the actual history at the time, there was tremendous social and political upheaval caused by those shifts. And I think we have to expect there's going to be some degree of social upheaval as the world of work significantly changes over the next 10 years.
I've been unemployed now for the last year, which has made it really difficult because the longer I'm unemployed for, the harder it gets, I think.
20-year-old TARNYA Sturgis lives in Adelaide. Like an increasing number of young Australians, her working life has been a string of casual and part-time jobs.
So I've worked in tappers bars, I've worked in retail, I've worked in chemists, I've done chicken shops, bakeries, sandwich making. I started off at Coles as a checkout person and I really enjoyed it, but I think I want more of a career now that I'm getting a lot older, so I want to get into something where it's going to be long-term, not short-term. That's where it's difficult because I want full-time work, not casual.
I think you have to always start to the bottom.
Just like her mother, Christine, TARNYA left school in Year 10.
Christine, you finished school in Year 10, like TARNYA, but it wasn't hard for you to find an opportunity.
No, because you didn't have to have computer skills or the things that these kids need to have. They just took you on face value. So if you had what they were looking for, they gave you a chance.
Are you concerned for TARNYA's future and the future of work for someone of her age?
Absolutely. Like, what future do our kids have if everything's going to be run by technology? Like, yeah, I'm just really concerned. Like, I have a younger daughter too. Like, what future will she have? If TARNYA can't get back into the workforce, what future do our rest of our children have?
South Australia has been hit hard by the decline in manufacturing and has the highest unemployment in the country.
Hi Tanya. Hello, how are you? It's good to see you. Good, you too. Come on through.
The suburbs around Adelaide are among the worst places for young people looking for work.
And how have you been going this week?
Good. I've been applying for a lot more jobs than usual.
And have you found that there's lots of jobs out there for you to apply for?
No, not at the moment.
Staff at the Youth Services Network, Re-Engage, are helping TARNYA to find a career.
And there's people that actually listen.
With the advancement in technologies, many of the entry-level jobs that traditionally went to young people are diminishing. If you're young and unemployed in South Australia, it's tough and it's definitely getting tougher. And I know compared to when I was looking for a job and finishing in high school, there were jobs available in retail and hospitality that you didn't even need qualifications for. Now there's an expectation that you're not only qualified, that you're experienced. So for young people like TARNYA, it's really challenging and it's really disheartening.
In years gone by, we have expected young people just to be able to leave school and walk into a job and then find their way in a career path. In this modern economy, that's not the case. So it's an important point that the transition from school to work has become much more problematic for young people than it has been in decades gone by. In the decade ahead, we've got to give much more public policy attention to the issue of assisting those young people make the transition successfully.
We are already at the point
where there are not enough jobs for everybody who wants them in Australia. Quite apart from the 5.8% who are unemployed, there are a significant number of others who have just given up trying to find a job. They're discouraged. So we're already at the state where we haven't got enough jobs, and it seems that it's increasing.
Futurist Charles Brass argues that if machines keep learning to do our work more cheaply than we can, it's inevitable that there won't be enough work to go around.
If you're an individual business owner or a manager of a large business, your objective is to make as much money as you can out of the business that you're in. If you can do that by employing technology and not employing human beings, you're going to employ technology and not employ human beings. I know there are people who say don't worry about it, the jobs will come, but the debate is done, the evidence is in. What jobs are being created are part-time, casual and fragile. There's not enough money in those jobs to sustain people, and there aren't enough of those jobs for all the people that are falling out the bottom.
I think one thing that's different in the next 10 or 15 years is the fact that that automation is occurring in the middle classes, in the middle jobs, and not just at the bottom end. Fundamentally, the big difference now is machine learning and artificial intelligence in particular are actually solving jobs that we thought traditionally were very highly qualified jobs, people like lawyers and doctors and accountants and bankers and these sorts of things. They're actually changing those. So in fact, it's eating out the middle of the job market rather than the bottom end.
A university degree was once seen as a sure pathway to a secure career, but not anymore. The full-time employment rate for new graduates is now under 70%, the lowest rate in more than 30 years. Some graduates, like Brett Edman, have to settle for low-skilled jobs outside the profession they trained for.
You heard people saying it wasn't a matter of finishing your degree and then having to go out and look for work. It was a matter of if you're in your final year, then you start looking at what jobs are available and start applying for them, and usually you get snapped up before you graduated.
Brett Edman is an electrical engineering graduate who also speaks Mandarin after a year studying in China.
I came back to Australia thinking, oh yeah, it'll be fine, like there'll still be enough jobs, but yeah, like there was just nothing.
Brett says he gave up looking after applying for more than 100 electrical engineering jobs. Now working as a casual labourer, he's back living with his parents and back at university, studying to be a science teacher.
I do know that science teachers are in massive demand, but then again, that's the exact same thing I said when I was studying engineering, so hopefully that situation won't have changed by the time I graduate this time.
The latest unemployment figures confirm a trend that's been growing for decades. 2/3 of all new jobs created in the past 3 years have been part-time. Since 1980, the proportion of part-time jobs has doubled, from 1 in 6 to almost 1 in 3.
There's no doubt from the hard numbers that the average quality and security of work in Australia has deteriorated over the last few years. We see the growth of what you might call precarious work in all kinds of forms. Part-time work, temporary work, casualisation. What that means is, not for all Australians, but for more of them, work is increasingly insecure. They don't know when they're going to be working, they don't know if they'll have enough work, and the average pay and compensation of work has declined. So the overall trend is definitely negative.
To say that employment should be full-time, I think is quite prescriptive and quite wrong. It simply does not reflect the realities of modern Australia. The fact of the matter is that a lot of female workers, not all by any means, but a substantial proportion of the female workforce do not want full-time work. It's not being imposed by someone from beyond. This is what people actually want from the bottom up.
It's a demand that new companies like Airtasker are cashing in on. From an office in Sydney's CBD, the web-based business connects people who need a job done with others prepared to bid for it. So far, more than 500,000 people have used the service to create $40 million worth of work.
What we're really proud of at Airtasker is that we're creating new job opportunities. Like if you wanted to find, as an example, someone who's really good at polishing shoes, you want to find that person, how hard is it to find them? If we make that easier, we make it possible for someone to actually do that shoe shining job and earn some money and a transaction happens, and that's a great thing. And without these kinds of simple platforms, that job simply wouldn't exist.
At first I did pretty much anything that would come up that I could do. Things like waiting in queue at a restaurant, picking up parcels from the post office, little courier jobs here and there.
When she lost her job as a real estate agency receptionist 3 years ago, Yanitza Damaris signed up with Airtasker. She likes the flexibility it offers.
It's not locked into a 9-to-5 job where I can't get around and do what I want to do, especially at this time in my life. There's a lot of family, not needs, but I want to be there for family for certain things that they're encountering that they need an extra hand for. And just gives me that autonomy to be able to getting my time, getting out and about.
Today, Yanitza is collecting a parcel for someone too busy to do it themselves. This Airtasker job's only worth $25, but she takes it because it's on the way to a friend she wants to visit.
It is a bit dog eat dog, survival of the fittest, but it gives an opportunity for everyone to have a go. As far as providing income that you can forecast for, probably not. However, some weeks could be far better than one other week, and it averages out well, if you're willing to take that risk.
Like, for example, on our platform, we know we have plenty more women. One thing that I think is a misconception is that Airtasker is only about menial labour. That's actually not true at all. Some of the guys who have earned huge money are guys doing things like making websites. And all we are is a platform for short-term labour. And you can find people to do anything for you in that regard.
A survey by the Australian Bureau of Statistics found that more than a quarter of part-time workers want to work more hours.
So the types of very insecure day-to-day work that are being facilitated by these new web-based platforms cannot be the basis for the prosperity of the whole community. Are they a way to make a few bucks for people? Maybe, but they're not anything like the sorts of permanent, reliable income you need to have a healthy family and a healthy economy.
Canadian economist Jim Stanford is the founding director of the Australia Institute's Centre for Future Work, which is partly funded by trade unions.
You know, this idea that you're not going to have a permanent job, you're just going to kind of work from one short-term gig to another, is often portrayed as a kind of amazing new development. But really, there's nothing new about it at all. That model of work is centuries old, in fact. If you look back to the early days of capitalism, the way that early factories worked, for example, they didn't offer people a 40-hour-a-week job in a factory. They would bring you in for a few hours and send you home. Or even better, from the employer's perspective, they would let you take the work home, you know, say in a textile factory, do the work at home, and then bring it back when you were done. Funny, it starts to sound a lot like some of these web-based businesses, you know, around doing odd jobs, where you're supposedly working, but, you know, on an occasional basis from your own home without any guarantee at all about your income.
In an increasingly global competition for work, technology is overcoming geography. Another Australian company, Freelancer.com, has almost 20 million people around the world bidding for jobs that can be done over the internet.
Chances are any job you can think of, whether it's a, you know, whatever it may be, it can be done with a computer, which means that anyone, any time of day, at the other side of the world, potentially can do it for you for a fraction of the cost.
If employers or even the final customers are able to, reach out to other parts of the world where people are desperate and work for a fraction of what they do in Australia, it's just another way of integrating Australia into this world labour market where, unfortunately, most people are poor and most people are much more desperate than they are in Australia. So the shift towards more tradable services, that is, services that can be performed in one country and delivered in another country, I think is going to accentuate the deterioration in the quality of work.
The challenge for 4.3 million young Australians is not the person sitting next to you in school. It's actually the 750 million young people in the region. And that is actually the most challenging piece of the global story, I think, is that how will we ensure that we've got a generation of young people who can really compete in that environment, because we have literally no chance of staying this isolated island.
Jan Owen is the Chief Executive of the Foundation for Young Australians, which is lobbying for a complete overhaul of the way we teach our kids.
If we want to maintain our standard of living and sustain the way that we live here, Australia is right now not prepared, and we're not preparing young people for that global environment either.
Is this something you've been working on for a while?
No, just 1 week.
That's pretty good to get that done the first week.
Yep.
So click on it and see what happens.
I'm just a start of that.
Yeah, but somehow you came up with this.
On Saturday afternoons in the Sydney suburb of Balmain, kids come together not to play sport, but to learn to code computers, to help them win the jobs of the future.
Let's just get bananas.
Okay, yes, I think you're right, actually. This is called telling the computer what to do, not letting it tell you what to do, Jojo.
There's even a robot car they are programming to move.
All the other actions for the robot.
What it is, it's a handful of volunteers that are mentoring children to learn how to code. Give them every sort of challenge to be able to play and experiment and learn how to write programs themselves. Yeah. I believe that coding is the next layer of literacy.
Just do it 3 times.
Wherever you go, you see people using software. You see parents giving their kids iPhones. Like, I'll go to an airport and I'll see a parent trying to fob off their child by giving them an iPad. We shouldn't just be consuming it ad infinitum, but we should be able to write it as well.
Then says hello.
The parents here are learning just as much as their kids.
The bad guy likes learning that computers are things that they control, that they're proactive over, rather than just being passive recipients. You start to realise that you control the computer. You tell the computer what to do, the computer doesn't tell you what to do.
Ethan, your game's pretty cool.
And
Yeah.
do you wish you were being told how to do this at school?
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to reset it though, so
Groups like CoderDojo are also a reaction to parental concern that more skills like this are not being taught in Australian schools.
No, they don't really teach this sort of thing.
He's teaching them.
At school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see where this is going and what this is doing, and I can see the need for it. I definitely think this should be taught in schools. This is what will be the future, writing these programs and applying them to their workplaces.
We're able to write games, was it? Yeah, JavaScript.
What we don't have in Australia is the proficiency or the numbers of young people who can make it, break it and build it. Coding is a great skill. Very soon computers are going to be able to code to each other. So again, it's not actually the coding, it's what's the skill set that you're teaching underneath coding. And the skill set that you're teaching underneath coding is, algorithms, it's problem solving, it's critical thinking.
Schools in the future might look a bit more like the Australian Science and Mathematics School, which is leading a revolution in the way kids are taught. No bells ring here, and students and teachers take turns bringing their dogs to school.
We don't do bells and we don't do uniforms and we don't do surnames. That's because this is more like a real life experience. You don't have bells in your workplace. You don't have closed off offices everywhere and you don't have people calling you Mr. or Miss. This is a real workplace.
What did you work out this one to be?
We want to be working with the kids. We don't want them to think that we are the boss.
This here is at a right angle.
And by having structures like no walls, big classes, teamwork, no desks for teachers, we're actually able to really help people, and both the teachers and the students understand how we can do that in a way that is much more realistic.
But we rotate from a line.
ASMS is a public school within the grounds of South Australia's Flinders University.
I'm not standing on a Cartesian plane, but could I be?
It's for senior high school students with a passion for the so-called STEM subjects: science, technology, engineering and mathematics, necessary for 75% of the fastest growing occupations.
This one is a much superior model.
In most Australian high schools, the study of STEM subjects has been declining for decades.
So we need more people with those pure hard skills in science, technology, engineering and maths. The second revolution is in learning how to learn, learning how to build, learning how to design, because that can be applied throughout someone's life to solve all sorts of problems as technology changes.
I really like how it's like flowing down. I like that design.
Like go on the video.
STEM is going to be part of the future. It's not the only part of the future. 15-year-olds in Australia today have got not the levels of digital proficiency, financial literacy, and then also ability to communicate, present, what we call enterprising skills or transferable skills. If they don't have those skills, they're going to find it really hard to navigate a very flexible career that has a whole heap of casual and other work going on in it.
Don't forget, you want these people to look at your website.
ASMS tries to prepare students for the changing world of work with what it calls challenge-based learning.
Maybe going on to Photoshop.
Traditional subjects like English are not taught on their own. Instead, they are mixed together to solve real-life problems. Every class is a collaboration.
People are going to need to be fabulous communicators. They're going to need to be really great team players.
Is it just more eye-catching if you do why?
Not only that, they need to have some discipline knowledge, but they need to know how to learn, because we don't know what it is they're going to need to learn. So when we work with the students, we work really closely, not only on them gaining the academic knowledge, but also on gaining those dispositions and capabilities that are going to set them up to be successful in the future. Because without that, the students won't have choices.
So do you want just white background?
Yeah.
Students have to invent a marketable product by the end of the semester.
So each group of maybe 3 or 4 will choose a issue and they'll fix it or try to fix it using the facilities here.
So what we're aiming to do is have a GPS system. You can turn it on, and when the umbrella is 15 metres away, it will alert you and it'll tell you that where's your umbrella, which a lot of people leave umbrellas on buses and stuff, and as soon as you walk out you're like, where's my umbrella? But the umbrella will tell you before you lose it.
Using 3D printers, Chelsea, Phoebe and Josiah are designing an umbrella that won't blow inside out, has an inbuilt torch and tells you when it's lost.
What other things can this umbrella do that other umbrellas can't do?
I think the question we need to ask ourselves is, what can't it do?
There will be a flashlight that will go through here, and we're going to plan to have a mirror that will shine the light out onto the path.
With assignments like this, other schools, we probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to explore what we wanted to do, but here, we definitely get to explore what we're interested in more than I think other schools. The ability to put your learning into real life situations is really beneficial.
So we could put a picture of our cone there, like a big picture.
Yeah.
And then
or our logo, I don't know.
Yeah.
In a quiet corner across the open plan room, another group is trying to solve a different yet familiar problem. Why ice cream is so messy to eat.
How did you make that?
We 3D printed this. Yeah. What we've done is we've incorporated a rim onto your normal ice cream cone. So what it does is it catches drips and it reduces the risk of getting sticky fingers when eating ice cream.
Maybe change this picture here.
The jobs these kids end up doing may not have been invented yet.
We've added
We can't future-proof their prospects, but rethinking what they need to learn may be a good place to start.
We could start working with 12-year-olds today. By the time they've done 6 years of high school and they're 18, we could genuinely have changed their trajectory if we focused on some of these education changes that need to happen. And we could genuinely set them up and then therefore Australia up for a very different future.
It's 2 weeks later at ASMS, and the students are presenting their products to potential investors.
It's biodegradable straws. This is the one card. It's to solve the problem of having too many loyalty cards in your wallet or purse.
We've designed it so that it cannot be blown inside out. We've got flaps here so they allow for wind circulation so that it can't go inside out. We've only had guests and students come look at us, but hopefully an entrepreneur comes.
The drip-free ice cream cones now look ready to eat.
So you've got the cone, and we've really simply just attached the rim with lollies, and you just eat your ice cream normally, and it'll drip down, it'll like land here, and you just eat the rim as you go.
And have you had much interest?
Yeah, we've got quite a lot of people coming through, so it's been exciting, yeah.
What we're trying here to do is to really help our kids get the skills that they're going to need in the future in terms of that resilience, that ability to really go out there and make opportunities for themselves.
Have you ever had trouble with your umbrella blowing inside out?
I have.
Don't you just hate it when you go inside and your umbrella is soaking wet?
Yes.
We know how you feel. Luckily, we have the product for you. Our initial prototype is just laid up here.
The umbrella team piques the interest of an entrepreneur.
Fantastic.
In the end, the ice cream cones win the day, with the umbrella kids close behind.
This will be hydrophobic material. We all know what it has to
73 stalls here today, of which I've done half of them so far, and I believe there's at least 2 of them, or 3 of them that are viable right now, of which there's 2 of them that I would say are billion-dollar businesses, if we could get it out there and sell them to the world.
These young people are rethinking their future.
So our umbrella is reasonably cheap.
Many more Australians will need to do the same.
It's been great. Like, everyone loves it because the problems it fixes, everyone kind of can relate to it.
And do you think that your future will be making your own opportunities in this way?
Yeah, I think I've never really considered that before. I've always thought of, going down, the traditional path. But after doing this, I've maybe this is something that I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the marketing behind it as well. So this could definitely be a future pathway for me.